all the faculty members, research scholars, and my dear students for joining this webinar. Dr. Ramani V. Markani has 15 years of experience in patent preparation and prosecution. She was working as Senior Director with Claire Wallex Knowledge Prowess Private Limited. She was mentoring patent engineers and supervising the patent development team in Bangalore to ensure high quality of patent applications. Prior to this, she was director at Intellectual Ventures. Mr. DPS Parmar heads the Intellectual Property Appellate Board Practice Group at Lex Orbis. Before joining IPAB, Mr. Parmar worked with the Indian Patent Office for over 27 years and had played a vital role both at the administrative and policy levels. He represented India at various rounds of discussions organized by World Intellectual Property Organization and attended follow-on programs at European and Japanese patent offices. He was instrumental in the recognition of IPO as the 15th ISA and IPEA under the Patent Cooperation Treaty. India, as a member of World Trade Organization and signatory to the Agreement on Trade-related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, is obliged to align its intellectual property rights laws with TRIPS Agreement. The challenge comes not only from creating the laws, but also their implementation, considering the Indian government has a strike a balance between the needs of the country's citizens and the rights of patent holders. The issue has come all the more sensitive considering a bulk of patent applications in India is filed by foreign companies. To give an example, the data provided by Indian IP Office in its annual report of 2017 and 18 shows that applications filed by foreign applicants are more than the double to those filed by Indian residents. The figures are foreign applicants, there are 32,304 and Indian residents, they are 15,550. Apart from the global patentability requirements of inventions to have novelty, inventive step and industrial applicability, the Indian Patent Act has specific provisions covered under Section 3 that makes the patentability of an invention relating to subject matter such as derivatives of pharmaceutical drug, B. patentability of stem cells, C. diagnostic methods and kits, and D. isolated DNA sequences. E. computer related inventions, etc. are not patentable subject matter. As a result, these inventions face a higher threshold of examination and scrutiny. Though guidelines in relation to the patentability of software, biotech inventions, and pharmaceutical inventions have been issued by Indian Patent Office, the practical challenges outlined below continue to be faced by patent holders. In the last 5 years, the government led by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has striven hard to bring about perceptible change in the intellectual property landscape, starting with rolling out intellectual property rights policy and establishing a cell for IPR promotion and management to work towards accomplishing intellectual property policies and objectives. In addition to clear backlog of patent and trademark applications, the government has undertaken a massive digitization exercise, recruiting a large number of examiners, leading to an exponential increase in the examination and grant of patents. To encourage startups to seek protection of their IP and to file patent applications, facilitators have been appointed. Despite government efforts, multinational corporations continue to push for better protection of their IP. The expectations appear to be summarized in a special 301 report issued by the Office of the United States Trade Representative USTR, putting India on the priority watch list. The report mentions over the past year, India took steps to address intellectual property challenges and promote IP protection and enforcement. However, many of the actions have not been translated into concrete benefits for innovators and creators, and long-standing deficiencies persist. India remains one of the world's most challenging major economies with respect to protection of enforcement of intellectual property. To sum up, as India strives to become US 5 trillion economy by 24-25, innovation will play a key role. The Indian government must work to address the procedural and substantive challenges faced by IP holders. Today, we are presenting the session on intellectual property rights, issues and challenges. Now I welcome distinguished speaker, Dr. Ramani V. Markani ji, Associate Partner, Lex Orbis, to kindly share her views. Thank you, ma'am. Now I welcome Ramani Madam, Dr. Ramani V. Markani ji to start her presentation or start her views, please.
Yeah.
Madam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Yadav, for giving us an opportunity to participate in this webinar and giving us a very nice overview of intellectual property challenges that we are facing. So today I'm going to just speak on the basics. Maybe it may be a refresher course for most of you, or for some of you it may be a new learning. So let's just look at this slide. Two people approached a patent attorney, an IPR lawyer, and they just said that, all I asked was, can I patent my copyrighted trademark? The IPR attorney fainted. If you see any problem with this statement, then this is for you. If you don't see any problem, still it is for you, because we will be refreshing our fundamentals today on patents, copyrights, trademarks, and different intellectual properties. We all know, being lawyers, we all know that we have a property law which deals about different kinds of properties. We have movable property like furniture, pens, dresses, which we can buy, procure, and then we move it from one place to other place and we own them. Similarly, we also have immovable property like land, building. We buy them, we procure them, they'll belong to us forever unless we voluntarily give it to someone. But these properties are not movable, so they are immovable properties. These very well-known properties of movable and immovable. We also have something called as intellectual property, which is very different from the other kinds of property. This intellectual property can be literary works, musical works, songs, dramas, patents, inventions, which could be anything. What is intellectual property basically? It is intangible. If we talk about the furniture, if we talk about building, if we talk about a pen, you can touch it. Whereas the intellectual property, we can't touch. It's intangible. And basically it is created by human mind. But basically his creation, it's because of his intellect. So what do we get out of this? We get exclusive rights given by the government. But unlike the other property, these exclusive rights are only time bound. So if I have a patent, it is only valid for 20 years. If I have a trademark, it is only valid for 10 years. Unlike you have a building, it's yours forever. These intellectual property rights are only time bound and they are territorial. What do you mean by territorial? If I have a patent in India, I can enforce the patent only in India. I can't enforce the patent in US. We will be learning more about enforcement soon from Mr. Parmar. Okay, how do we go? What is the chain of act? How do we create this? Like, how do we build, construct a building? We have a foundation, we have bricks, stones and all. For this, how do we do the chain of activities for intellectual property? The first one is you have to innovate and you have to create. Think something, you come up with a new invention, you think of a new poem, you can create. Then you have to protect. If for patent, you have to go to a patent office and register, you apply for your patent application. If it is a trademark, you go register with trademark office. You protect your intellectual property. That is the second step. Then the third step is commercialization. What do we do with our patent? Maybe we can produce our goods, or we can license it to someone. We can get money out of it. So the third step is commercialization. And the last step is enforcement. Suppose someone is using your trademark, someone is using your patent without your permission, you can go behind them and you can enforce them. We will learn little more about enforcement in the next session. Okay. So basically, intellectual property can be divided in two parts. One is copyrights, and rest of all the intellectual properties are combined under industrial property. Why is the difference? Because copyright is basically, it is kind of literary, artistic, musical material, whereas remaining all are to do with commercialization. So copyright is an exclusive right given to an originator for a literary, artistic, or musical material. We have. Can you hear me? I get a lot of disturbance.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah, I get a lot of disturbance. Okay. Anyway, we have other intellectual properties that all combined under industrial properties. We have trademarks, we have geographical indications, industrial designs, trade secrets, patents, and plants can also be protected. So we'll just go through very briefly because it's just a very basic presentation of today's. Trademarks. I think most of you would be knowing the trademark. Trademark can be a word, it can be a phrase, it can be a design, or combination of all these things and distinguishes the goods of one person from the other. So if I have a trademark, you cannot use my trademark without infringing me. So the trademark could be symbols, like we all know. The first one is Nike, the second one is McDonald's, that is the symbols. Even sometimes the designs can also be trademarks, like Pepsi. Sometimes words like Crest, Coca-Cola, and we can also have trademarks or phrases. Just do it. Just do it is Nike's phrase. Let's get ready to rumble. It's a phrase by a very famous boxer that can also be, that is actually protected and as a trademark, and he earned millions of rupees, millions of dollars by using his trademark. Similar to trademark, we also have service marks. What is the basic difference between trademarks and service marks? Trademarks indicates the goods of one person, whereas a service mark is for distinguishing the source of a service. It's not a good, but it's a service. It's a service rather than a product. What are the examples of service marks? We have McDonald's. McD is a chain of stores which provide services. AT&T, like our internet provider, and Walmart. These are all the service providers. So they can protect these marks as service marks. So let's just see. We already learned trademarks are basically to identify the goods and services. And each mark should be distinctive. And you should be able to distinguish of goods and services of one person from another person. That is a trademark. What a trademark law does, it basically protects your business reputation and goodwill of your company. It also protects the consumers from deception. So I can't go buy a wrong product. If I want to go to the store and buy Nike shoes, I know where is the I can know the trademark of Nike and buy only Nike shoes. These trademarks are valid for 10 years, and we have to keep on renewing till as long as we want to discontinue. Otherwise, it is renewable for every 10 years. Still, we don't want to continue it anymore. That is a trademark. Sometimes if you observe, in some places we see TM and in some places we will see R. What is the difference between that? TM is for unregistered trademark, R is for registered trademark. Actually, you don't have to really register your trademark. If you are using it for a very long time, it becomes very popular and everyone knows it. So you don't have to worry about registration. But there is a little problem with unregistered trademarks. Unregistered trademarks are protectable only in the area where we are using them. So if your trademark became popular in Andhra Pradesh, then you may not be able to enforce in Tamil Nadu if you don't register. So that's why we generally advise people to register their trademarks. As soon as you register your trademark, you can use the word symbol R. This is about trademarks. Now we will see about geographical indications. What is the difference between trademark and geographical indication? Trademark is for goods or services provided by one particular person or organization, whereas geographical indications are basically for a product developed in a particular locality, country, region, which has the typical characteristics of that place. Suppose if I say nowadays so many things, we have a lot of examples. I'll show you a lot of examples. So basically geographical indications can differentiate between agricultural goods, natural goods, or manufactured goods. So if you are producing if you're talking about any geographical indication of any product, that has a typical qualities, typical characteristics of the geographical region. So the quality, the reputation, or the characteristics of such goods are basically attributable to the geographical origin. So we have lots of examples. I'll just run through. We all know tea, right? Assam is very famous for tea, Darjeeling tea. These are all the geographical indications. This particular tea grown in Assam has a typical flavor. That is because of the soil of Assam, that is a temperature conditions, that is a humidity. So this tea grown there has a typical property of that particular location. So this is called a geographical indication. So we have, these are all the agricultural goods. Now they're all protected under GI. See, Alfonso mangoes. These mangoes, I can grow in Bangalore and still call them Alfonso? No, it has, when it is grown in particular region, it has a specific taste, it has specific texture, it has specific color. These are the different jasmines. So they all are from different places and they all are protected under GI now. So different kinds of bananas, Coorg orange, these are all under the GIs. And not only agricultural goods, suppose an iron ore found in Goa has a very typical characteristic and it is protected under Goa iron ore. So it has the GI of Goa iron ore. So we also have so many Tirupati Balaji Laddu. Nowadays we have the Laddu made in Tirupati is protected under GI. Handicrafts, different kinds of handicrafts, they're all protected by GIs. Terracotta work, sarai work, and bamboo work, and handicrafts from different countries, different regions of India, we can protect them. The dresses, the materials, the silk, everything can be protected. That is the geographical indications. Now we have something called as trade secrets. The name indicates it's a secret. It remains secret as long as it's not leaked out. So there is a disadvantage with trade secret that if someone comes to know and they reverse engineer, they open your product and they reproduce it, you have no say. You can't enforce because it is not anymore trade secret once it leaks to the public. So what is a trade secret? It is a secret device or technique used by a company for its products. We have so many examples. Google's search algorithm is trade secret. Kentucky Fried Chicken, they use particular kind of masala, that is trade secret. Coca-Cola is the best example of trade secret. None of the senior management will fly in the same flight because in case something happens, the trade secret will remain. I mean, we can't pursue it anymore. Similarly, McD's Big Mac special sauce, Krispy Kreme donuts. These are a few examples where we have trade secrets protected. The difference between trade secret and patents is patents can be enforceable. If you have a patent, you disclose everything, but at the same time, you can go and if someone uses your patent, you can sue them. Whereas trade secret, the disadvantage is you can keep it, you can protect it as long as you keep it as a secret. So that's the reason why it's very important to use the words confidential wherever possible when you are dealing with trade secrets. Then we have the next one, the industrial designs. As the name indicates, you can protect your design. You come up with a very different kind of bottle. You come up with a very different kind of pen shape. It's only design, configuration, pattern, or composition of lines or colors. It's not functional features. Just remember, if you have any functional feature, that has to be protected by patent. Industrial designs, basically, it covers only the outside features. the design features only are covered by industrial design. So we have consumer products, right? It can be a wallet, it can be a steam iron, it can be a comb, it can be Kolhapur slippers. All these things can be covered under design protection. You can't talk anything about their functional features. You should only say, how does it look like? What is the color combination? You can even protect your pharmaceutical products. It can be syringe, it can be injection vial, it can be hand sanitizer dispenser, anything. These all can be protected under design as long as we do not claim any functional features. Textiles and jewelry can be protected under design. So next one is copyrights. Copyrights is basically, as we already discussed, it is for music, dramas, novels, artwork. All these things can be protected by copyrights. So copyright gives protection for literary, dramatic, musical, artistic works and cinematographic works and sound recordings. It is basically, it has to be your original idea. You can't copy it. It has to be an original idea and you have to have a fixed form. It's not necessary to register, but again, as I said, it's always better to register in case we need to enforce our rights. So these are the different types we already discussed for the under copyrights. Okay, this I just wanted to tell you because I know some audience are students. This is very important for the students. Plagiarism. This is a very, very big issue with students basically. We use someone else's work. Sometimes will be intentional, sometimes without even knowing we are using it. That is really a big thing to avoid. So what is plagiarism? It is basically using another's work as your own work and presenting it without giving credit. If you want, nowadays we have so much of information is available in the internet. So for any problem, first thing we go is we Google it. We go and look at for the literature. We go and look at for the answers of the problem. We want to write a paper, we want to publish something, then what do? We go and search in the internet, we go copy it, and we forget to give the credit to the author. That is very, very dangerous. So sometimes we intentionally copy it without giving the credit. Sometimes lack of knowledge. So we are innocently, we didn't even know that it is copyrighted protected. So we go to the internet, pick up some material, use it in our thesis or use it in our papers, without even knowing that. Whether it is knowing or unknowing, plagiarism is to be avoided. How many types we have? Copying. Copying is just copy everything without even giving credit. Patchwork copying. Maybe you can use some passages and then use it. And paraphrasing. You take someone else, he is using in past tense, you use in present tense, or he is using in active voice, you convert into passive voice. So that is called paraphrasing, but that is also to be avoided. Sometimes your own work, self-plagiarism is also possible. Your own work, you already published, again you are writing in the same paper without even quoting the previous paper. So that is also to be avoided. So how do we avoid it? Use your own work. The best thing is you read, you understand, put everything in your own words. So that is the best strategy. No, sometimes we have to use the literature, we have to use some other source. And be honest. Just tell them, where is the source from? Where did you take it from? Did you access from a book? Did you access from internet? Just give them the source and cite properly. I think law students, you all must be very familiar with the blue books. How do we cite? We have to, if you are citing a website, you have to give the date when you access the website. So be very careful to cite it properly. And style change. Use your own style. You may have to repeat, rewrite. You may not be happy with your writing first time. Absolutely no problem. Keep on doing it. There are some tools available. So just check whether you have quoted properly or not. And this is my favorite topic, being a scientist. So we spend a lot of time on patents. So that's why I wanted to push it to the end. We can spend more time on patents. So we all know how is our human evolution. We started with one wheel, then went to the 2 wheels, and then went to 4 wheels. We kept on evolving. Not only in the automobile, we do the same thing in other fields. Imagine Wright brothers. They have come up with a very crude model of airplane. Now imagine Boeing's Dreamliner, which is the most with so many luxurious civil aircraft. Imagine how is a penicillin detected. Penicillin was detected by mistake. By accident, he detected in the lab. Alexander Flamingo. Now, our scientists are working on COVID-19. Our scientists are working on COVID-19 vaccine. So it goes on and on. So how do we protect a genuine inventor who spends our time, who spends his intellectual capability and come up with something? We have to give him some right because of his hard work. So patent is a right granted to an inventor by the government. So inventor can exclude others from making, selling or using the inventions for 20 years without his knowledge. If you want to use someone's invention, yeah, please go ahead and license it from them. Pay money and use the invention. So India is the only country which says which are the inventions that are not patentable. So anything contrary to natural laws, we can't patent it. So this is called Section 3 of Indian Patent Act, which talks about inventions that are not patentable. Okay, what are not patentable? Inventions that are contrary to natural laws. What do you mean by that? Suppose I talk about a machine which gives 200% efficiency. Is it possible? Any machine can give 100% efficiency. So can I have something which is to 200%? So such kind of inventions are not patentable. And anything perpetual motion machine, a machine which can never fail, it continuously runs, that kind of thing which is against the principle of thermodynamics, that is not patentable. Similarly, if you come up with an invention which is contrary to the public order, public morale, so you go and invent a gambling machine, you go and invent how do I break a house and enter into their house to do the for a thief to enable to go inside the house. So such kind of inventions are not patentable. Biological warfare material, embryonic stem cells are not patentable in India. Similarly, you take two substances, you mix them and say, oh, I have an invention. That is not patentable. You take sugar, you take water, you mix them and you say, I made a soft drink. So you know sugar, you know water. If you mix them, you get a soft drink. So that is not patentable. Where you can take two components, you can mix them and make something else which is totally different properties. For example, I have a fat, I have alkali, I mix them together, I make soap. The properties are very, very different of soap compared to fat and alkali. That is patentable. So just mere admixture, take A, B, make it together and make C, and you can't patent it unless C has very, very different properties than A and B. Similar to just arranging two things. So I know bucket, I know torch. So I combine a bucket with a torch such that I can take out the water from the well in the night. That is not patentable because a bucket is known, torch is known. Just by mixing together, by adding together, we can't get a patent. Umbrella with a fan, clock with a clock and radio, flour mill with sieving mill. These are all not patentable because they are only known devices. We are just combining them. Methods of agriculture or horticulture are not patentable in India because India is an agricultural country. And if you go and patent a method of agriculture, the farmers won't be able to use it. Traditional knowledge, I think you all must be familiar with the turmeric patent. Turmeric was patented in the US, whereas turmeric is known in India from ages. Our grandmothers used to treat our wounds. If you get a wound, they used to apply turmeric. So now US wanted to file a patent on that. So then India protested against that patent. They said, no, this is traditional knowledge. We know this from ages. It's not novel. So you cannot give a patent to traditional knowledge which is available with us for many years. Similarly, inventions relating to the atomic energy are not patentable. So we learned what are not patentable. Now let's see what are patentable. We can patent inventions which are novel. What do you mean by novel? It has to be first new one. You are the first one to do such thing. No one should have done that before. That is a novelty. An inventive step or obviousness. It should not be obvious. For a person skilled in the art, the minute he sees your invention, oh, I know this, I can make this easily. That should not be the case. And the last condition is industrial applicability. It has to be industrially useful. You can't come up with something which is not useful for the industry. So these are the conditions for patentability. The very important three conditions. First one is novelty. It has to be new. It has to be novel. No one should have done that before. And it has to be non-obvious. It should have an inventive step. Compared to the existing patent, your invention should be having a different kind of steps. And it has to be industrially applicable. So how do we do this? Generally, how do we do the patent process? So we'll just first start with our patentability search, our prior art search. What do you mean by that? As soon as the inventor comes to us with his invention, what do we do first? We will check whether is this the first one or someone already has done it. So we have a lot of tools for doing the search. Patent engineers, patent attorneys do the searching. Then they draft the patent application. They'll prepare the forms. There are particular forms to be filed with Indian Patent Office, and we'll file a patent application. That is our job. Now, what will the Patent Office do? Patent Office will publish the patent application for 18 months. After 18 months, it will publish. It makes available to the public. They'll examine it. And if they really find that it is novel, it is inventive, and it has industrial applicability, they will give a grant. Once you get a grant of the patent, you have to maintain it by paying the fees. For 20 years, you can be the patent owner. So no one else can practice your invention without paying you the licensing fee. So now see this. We have finished all kinds of intellectual property. Now just see, this is a car. So how many types of inventions, how many types of IPR can be used for this car? We can do patents, we can do design, we can do trademark, right? So your engine, transmissions, internal components, all these the technical features can be covered by patents. The body design, the shape of the body, the curves of the body can be protected by industrial design, and the braking, anti-braking, anti-skid properties can be again patents, and Reva, the brand name, can be protected by trademark. So one thing, now we have so many, one particular product can have so many different kinds of intellectual property rights. So now can you figure out the problem? So can I patent my copyrighted trademark? Wrong. They're all three different intellectual property. You have a patent. Patents are for technical features. Copyrights are for literary work. Trademark is for differentiating goods of one person from the other person. So these are three different kinds of intellectual property. Okay, so I'll just take you to very briefly to, I'm running out of my time. So I'll just take you to three case laws just to give you a taste. I think Mr. Parmar will take you in more detail the enforcement. Okay, so this is a very famous festival, Mamankam festival, celebrated in Kerala. So there is a case, very recent case this is. So Sajeev Pillai versus Venu. Okay, what is the question here? Whether the author of a work, even after assignment of the work, will have special rights to claim the authorship of his work. I'll explain you more details. So you are an author of a work and you assign to someone, you gave your rights to someone by paying, they paid you money and you gave them. So can you still be an author of the work? And the court said, yes. You by just mere giving an assignment to someone else, you will not lose your authorship. Let's look at the facts. Sajeev is a film director. He spent a lot of time, he did a lot of research, and he read about this festival, and he prepared a script for a movie. He wanted to take a movie. So he signed the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding he signed with Kavya Films and Venu. So Sajeev was the first initially appointed as a director. Something happened, they didn't go well along. So he was replaced by some other director. Then what happened? Venu completely changed the story. So Sajeev said that my script was mutilated, it's distorted, and it's modified. So he went to the court. Then the court, and Venu argued, no, you gave me, I signed MOU, you assigned me your rights, so you can't own, you can't claim your authorship. Then the court said that assignment of the work would not exhaust the legal right to claim the authorship. So the court gave the judgment in favor of Sajeev. Sajeev is still an author and he can claim, he can get a credit of his work. Then another one more simple example of trademark. This is basically for cyberspace. So Yahoo Inc. versus Akash. We are all very familiar with Yahoo. Yahoo is before Google. We used to use Yahoo for searching web. So Akash Arora, he started something called as Yahoo India, and same thing, he's also providing same web-based services. So Yahoo sued Akash saying that he's passing off, he is using their trademark very similar to he's using a trademark very similar to their trademark. So what are the facts? We all know Yahoo is the owner of the trademark Yahoo, and they also have a domain name. They have really acquired a distinct name, goodwill, and reputation. You are all very familiar with Yahoo. Akash started a same. At least he would have any other business that would have been fine, but he exactly used the same business as that of Yahoo. He's also started using web-based services, and Yahoo sued Akash, and court said yes. Yahoo and Yahoo India are very similar, and customers will get confused between Yahoo and Yahoo India. So Akash Arora should not use this domain name anymore. And this is a very important case law. I don't think I have too much time, but just to tell you that we have some section 3, I just told you in patent law, that has one particular section, section 3D, which is very much opposed by the developed countries like US and Europe, but it's very welcoming for the developing countries like in India, China, Brazil and all. Basically, what does this say? That if you have one form already existing, if you have a patent for a known form, for a substance, you can't file one more patent for a new form. So I'll explain you. Novartis had a patent already. You can see that case. Novartis had a patent for a drug that is an anti-cancer drug. They again applied for a patent in 2006 for a different form. It's beta crystalline form. So Chennai Patent Office rejected the application. Then Novartis went to Intellectual Property Appellate Board, they went to High Court, they went to Supreme Court. Basically, what Supreme Court said that you just see one line, last line of my presentation. Gleevec is, Novartis is selling one tablet for 4,000 rupees, whereas generic version which is made in India is 30 rupees per tablet. See the vast difference in the price. We are a developing country, so we can't make medicine so expensive. And what happens is multinational companies, what they are doing is they are doing evergreening. That's called evergreening. They have a patent, they do little more modification, and they again patent it. They get protection for again another 20 more years. So they keep on doing that such that no generic drug manufacturer will be able to enter the market. So the Supreme Court told that efficacy, they defined, this is the first case where the Supreme Court defined efficacy. Efficacy means in case of pharmaceutical efficacy, it has to be therapeutic efficacy. What was the Novartis argument is that beta crystalline form is easily available, it's easily dissolvable, it stays good, something like that. Then court said that those properties are not important. Those properties cannot get you a patent. To get a patent over the existing patent, it has to have a very different therapeutical efficacy, then only you can get a patent. So this is a very landmark case for pharmaceutical patents. If you are interested, we can discuss it later in more length, but this is a very important 3D case for decided in India, and Supreme Court defined that it is efficacy is therapeutical efficacy for pharmaceutical products. And this is the last case, very simple case. I mean, PepsiCo recently sued potato farmers. PepsiCo, a multinational company which is in the US, which is all over the world, they went and sued 4 potato farmers from Gujarat. Because PepsiCo has found a potato, and now for potato we can't file a patent in India, though we can file a patent in the US. In India, plant varieties are protected only under Protection of Plant Varieties Act. So PepsiCo found a potato, and it has very low moisture, and it's very good for making potato chips. So they went and applied for the the Plant Protection Act, and they got the protection IPR right. They got for 15 years. But PepsiCo found out that Gujarat farmers are using this potato without their permission. So PepsiCo went and filed a suit in the court. There was a huge uproar. Politicians, activists, NGOs, they all fought so much. They said that how can PepsiCo sue poor potato farmers who won't even know about IPRs, who are not even aware that such IPRs exist. So then immediately PepsiCo withdrew all the cases. So the case is closed, but it is a real eye-opener for the government, for the policy makers, for the all these people who are involved in this case, in this developing in this particular patent act, the Protection of Plant Variety Act. It is a real eye-opener. So how do we educate our farmers who are not even aware that such kind of things can be protected under PPVFRA? So this is a big question still yet to be addressed. I mean, it's like a Goliath fighting with a David, a big devil fighting with a small little player. So PepsiCo filing Of course, PepsiCo removed all the cases, but the issue is to be still addressed in detail little later. Thank you very much for your attention. So I tried to cover the basics. It may be for most of you, it may be a repetition. So just it's a refresher course you can think of. Thank you very much.
Dr. Yadav is there? Dr. Ramani, it was a wonderful lecture on IPR. You have covered basics in a very nice way. And I thank Mr. DPS Parmar also for taking key initiative in organizing this webinar. And now we can have questions. If participants have some questions, they can type their questions and we can ask. Ma'am, all this queries.
Mr. Parmar is about to speak, sir. Mr. Parmar is about to speak, sir.
Okay, please ask him to speak.
Yeah. Now I request Mr. Parmar to continue with his words of advice, the presentation, please, sir.
So I'm sharing my presentation. Is it visible to you?
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay then. Good afternoon to all of you. And now you have already heard Ms. Ramani about the existence of some IP rights. And if your rights are there, definitely the general principle is that where there is a right, there is a remedy. Obis just ibis remedium. Means right always have a remedy, which is very important. When you have a right, patent right, it must be loaded with some kind of remedy. If somebody is infringing your right, what kind of remedies are available to you? That is most important thing in IPRs. And basically we have civil rights, criminal rights, and administrative rights. And these are guided by CPC and patent, trademark, and designs. Civil rights are available only for patent, trademarks, and designs. But for trademarks, you can see the colors. Color itself says that you can have a criminal remedies also available to you. You can have the criminal remedies under the criminal law. Same is with the copyright. Copyright also you can have the criminal remedies. And administrative remedies are available for all of them, where any goods which are coming or what are the things which are coming through ports can be stopped for enforcement of your rights right at the port itself. And customs allow this to be done if properly presented to them. And civil law normally governs the two things, particularly restraining and restraining means injunctions. Injunctions are very important. If you want to get remedy, first thing is you stop the person from using your right. That's the first thing you should do whenever IPRs are subjected to some kind of infringement or encroachment. And the compensatory is the later stage when trials are held and the damages and court allow you to take the claim damages in terms of whatever loss you have suffered due to the use by the person. Or there are always exemplary expenses, maybe the expenses which you have incurred or other expenses which court deem fit to give it to you. And civil provisions are guided by, again, the Indian Specific Relief Act of 1963, which has specific sections which govern what kind of injunctions you can have. And section 32 to 42 tells you about those injunctions. I'm not going to give you the details of that because you will definitely might have heard those things and read also in during your course studies. And the Code of Civil Procedure also governs certain injunction rules are there, Order 39(1), Rule 1, 2, and there's this blanket section 151 where court can use their power to do whatever is not possible through other provisions of the law. Injunctions are very important because these are restrained. If you can stop somebody from using your right now, and also for the future violations, injunctions are very, very useful. And the other restrainings are civil raids. Raids are always conducted, and the material which has been used for doing the injunction has to be seized. And sometimes the delivery is also important. All the infringing material is delivered to you. And discovery of the infringing documents. So once it is restrained, so everything is possible. Once you are restraining a person from using your right, you can discover the infringing goods, and also preservation of assets. Sometimes what happens, people say that somebody will infringe and vanish. But in such cases, the court will pass an order that the person will not, all assets will be freezed. All assets will be subjected to the court jurisdiction so that he is not running away with the fruits of the infringements, and nothing can be done against him. And compensating are normally punitive. Punitives are where you can punish him, you can put him in jail, or you can give him some exemplary expenses also. That is a punitive. It's possible in trademark cases where the person can be put in jail for doing some infringements, or he can be given exemplary damages he can be asked to give. Damages on account of profit. Damages are whatever damages suffered is equivalent to the infringement infringement done by the person, or that is normally counted on the basis of accounts of profits. And based on that control, the accounts of profits are determined from the records of the infringers, which are seized by the court. And these both are also possible in some cases if the infringement is really court deems fit. And we have to plead for it. And infringing goods, materials and implements can be seized, forfeited or destroyed. These are the things which are available in the Patent Act as well as Trademarks Act and the Copyright Act. So whatever is possible, it can be done by compensating the person who has suffered the damages due to infringement. Normally what happens as an advocate, when you join your practice, you will be sitting in your court or sitting in your chamber and you will get a lightning call from somebody. This normally happens every time when you sit here. He will say that something is going to strike in an hour. Means he's telling you somebody is going to infringe my right. See if you can get an injunction. See how quick you are. That is the beauty of your job. If you are able to restrain the person immediately and you can get an injunction, you are a good lawyer. And what kind of injunctions are available to you? So there's Anton Pillar order, which says that court order for such and such of the premises, and it can be evidence which is available there. It can be signed without any warning. You can go and inspect the premises of the person through a commissioner appointed by the court, and you can seize all the goods, and said he is not allowed to destroy these things. And this is always useful in preventing the destruction of all this incriminating evidence on trademarks, patents, and copyrights infringement. This is a very, very, very good order, and it is passed because of ex parte injunction. And I'm giving you this case. This is a very old case. Anton Pillar is a RPC, and all courts are following this RPCs. And the crux of this RPC is that court can order an ex parte injunction without hearing the second party. And another way is we call it as the John Doe, or in India it is known as Ashok Kumar. Here I'm not sure who is an infringer, and normally this happens in piracy cases where the trademark is involved or copyrights are involved. Here the court simply orders any person who is doing this infringing he's subjected to this kind of injunction. It's a blanket ban on the persons. And this happens particularly in a broadcasting right protection. This is John Doe type of order, where in 2002, Korean-Japan FIFA World Cup was going to held, and in India, every world was going to watch it through the network. And it was very difficult for these people to stop, because they could get 10 sports could get 300 people to sign that agreement, but 150 people still avoided those kind of licensing agreement to broadcast it. So they could obtain a John Doe type of order, and search and seizure was conducted in all the premises of the cable operators, and their equipments were seized. So this kind of John Doe orders are very, very important. Again, here, we don't know who is the person. Person is not involved here. That is why it is called John Doe order. Any person, any Tom, Dick, and Harry who has done that is covered by this kind of infringement. And in Copyright also, this type of orders are issued. I remember one case where Speed Racing film was about to be released and all the CDs were available in the market. So the good advocate went there and got an order from the court, and where they are restraining the displaying, releasing, downloading, uploading, showing, playing. Its number is whatever they could do to stop the piracy of that CDs or the film, they could get that kind of order, and they were very much successful in doing that. So John Doe type orders are very, very important types. Whenever there is a infringement, the person you're not knowing who is doing it. Quater and injunctions are those injunctions where threats are there because you know that somebody is going to infringe your right. This type of injunction was allowed in Novartis versus Ranbaxy case in drug involved Vidagliptin. And here Wockhardt, Biocon, Glenmark, Alembic, Bajaj, and others, so many others were stopped before the infringement threat was. They were just planning to do the work of manufacture or doing some research on it. They were stopped from doing it, and they could, Novartis could stop all these persons from infringing their rights on Glavus. Here again, the Minerva injunction is, Meriva injunctions are involved. Here, the accounts are chosen. As I told you in the beginning, the person who is infringing, the first thing the court does is to put his account into in a freezing stage so that he is not getting away with it, because somebody has to, if after trial money has to be recovered, so that account should always be frozen so that it can be recovered. This is always available in Indian law also. In Phillips case also, they were able to get this kind of account frozen, and they were able to get the money recovered from the person who was infringing their right. Interim injunctions are governed by some principles. It is not that any person who goes into the court and you present your case there and say, I should get an injunction. No, courts are not giving injunctions just hands-on. You have to prove it. What you have to prove it? Whether plaintiff has whether you have a prima facie case, and it's very, very difficult to prove sometimes whether you have a prima facie case, and you must have a factual evidence to facts and evidence to prove it. And the balance of convenience should be in your favor. If something is going to happen again and again, that you will be inconvenient. You will put into inconvenience, maybe loss, and the loss should be irreparable. The loss should be such that it cannot be recovered by damages. Normally it is all accounts of profit. So that's why you have to be prepared when you are preparing your injunction applications, where you will say that yes, this loss is irreparable, and this if it is not allowed, I will be suffering that kind of a loss. And this Wockhardt versus Heterodrug, this principle was laid down by Madras High Court, and Supreme Court also laid down this principle, which Madras High Court followed, and this and all courts are following it. Again, the Supreme Court just strengthened that whether the refusal of injunction would involve greater injustice than the grant of it would involve. So it is the justice part where the Supreme Court is looking at. Court also expect the party applying for injunction show a utmost good faith. Good faith should be there. It should not be a misguided application just to stop somebody. It should not be a biased application. And general principle which is discovered here, prima facie case, balance of convenience, irreparable loss would also be considered. So Supreme Court have added two more wings to it. That is, application should be filed in good faith. Second thing, the injunction should involve a greater injustice. Means person should come with clean hands, particularly good faith is related to that only. And infringement records, and because I'm a patent man, normally I just try to elaborate more on patent side. And I'm sorry for that purpose, because I'm more inclined to patent. So in the infringement of patent, the patent can be infringed if the product is there or a process is there, or act of making, offering of sales, selling, importing, or patent article without the consent of the patentee. The process patent also here, the process of making, and the process which is the product which is made directly by the process without the consent of the patentee. These are very rights which are granted under section 48, and you can use this as a source to know what kind of act has been infringed by the other person, and you can place your case accordingly. And when you should, you can institute the infringement in particularly patent, patent infringements can be issued only after the grant of a patent, and you will get the damages from the date of publication of the application of your application, which is your file for application for the patent. That should be published application. So after the grant, and the damages will be claimed from the date of publication. And you can institute. Limitation Act is very also applicable to patent law, where 3 years from the date of infringement. The cause of action is very important. You cannot just wait for 10 years or 15 years to take the action. So you have to be within 3 years of date of infringement. You should institute your proceedings. Otherwise, it will be time barred under Limitations Act. Who can sue? Patentee can sue it, or an exclusive licensee. If you have granted a license to somebody, he can also sue. Exclusive licensee can sue on your behalf. And manufacturer, importer, dealer, user, person who threatened to infringe. This is the what we are talking about when I said quasi-limiting injunctions are there. And the person who offers to sell. So the list is very big. The persons who are doing, there may be some people are doing direct infringement, some may be doing indirect, but all of them you can sue, provided you have a good case against them. And suit should be instituted in district court, because patent law is saying district court. And now the things has been changed, because the district courts are also having commercial courts with them. So it will be district court, then commercial court, appellate court, which is there, and finally high court, commercial court of the high court. This you have to read this clause with the Commercial Court Act, which has been recently introduced in the Parliament. So we have to read that, and that also have certain limitations. Up to above 2 crores, you have to go to high court. Below 2 crores of the suit value, district court, and below that, commercial court of district court, and below that you can file in the district court. These kind of jurisdiction have to be very careful when you are filing a suit for infringement. Just check for the recent notifications on this, and then you can proceed with it accordingly. And particularly when you are infringing, somebody is infringing your process patent, then you have there's a reversal of proof provision is also available to you. So if your product is identical, and it will be deemed to have been made by the same process unless proved the contrary. So the right normally is on the person who is accusing. But in patent law, if the patent right is for the process, the person who is infringing has to prove that his product is not same, or if his product is same, it is not made by the same process. And here there is a caution, because court also provides you a remedy. Law also provides you a remedy that you are not required to disclose the commercial things of your process in the open court. You can do it in the chimera. So the right of the person of the commercial information are always protected. But court always has the opportunity to see that and compare it with the ordinary process which has been patented. Relief is civil, as I told you. So you can get court may order a grant of interlocutory injunctions or a permanent. Interlocutory is time being. Sometimes they say that till we meet again. So these kind of injunctions are very, very common, and ex parte injunctions are given on this purpose only. And the grant of permanent injunctions are always on trial basis. When the trial has been conducted and merits of the case has been looked into, the permanent injunction will be there. Apart from permanent injunction, they can get either damages in patent, particularly damages, or account of process. And the product can be seized, the forfeiture or destruction of the goods, and even the materials and implement used for making that product. No damages or account of profits are available where the defendant proves that he is an innocent infringer. 111 of the Act says that person, if he is not knowing what patent is all about, and he has no reasonable ground to believe that patent exists. Say, Madam also discussed about PepsiCo case. That's not for the patent, but that can be taken as an example where the villager may not be knowing what patent is all about. He's an innocent infringer. So in that case, he will be treated as he has no reasonable ground to believe that a patent existed. So such kinds of cases are innocent infringers are always allowed to they won't be allowed to put into damages and accounts of profit, but they can be restrained for doing further work on it after they would find that they are infringing. And this is also a possible, the patent has to be renewed every year. If it is not renewed by the person, so it can be, and the period of default of the fee, the person is also cannot be subjected to pay the accounts of profit for the failure of during that period. So the period within which he has not paid the fee, which he is not allowed to, that account will be debited or it will not be covered in the payment of damages. So that will be less than the damages as if they are taken together. I'm not talking about this parallel import. This is very important in Indian law, particularly when a person is selling the product at a differential rates. And this is possible because he may be getting some products cheaper in China, or maybe he is able to produce some product cheaper in Japan or some other country. But he has obtained a patent in India in selling that product at a higher, very, very higher price in India. So to protect that kind of a exploitative pricing by the patentee, our patent law has introduced this parallel import provision. This can be explained like this: a country is somebody is holding a patent and he's a country A, and he's selling that in 400. Say India is the country A, and in country B some licensee is there, and the person is duly authorized, and he's selling that at 2,000 rupees profit. 2,000 is the cost here. So the basic thing is that the person B who is going to supply that product in A as a parallel import should be a licensee, or he is duly authorized by the patentee or the licensee. So that is the primary condition. So parallel import is allowed. Otherwise, if he is sending the product without this licensee, or without person who is not holding a license, or who is not authorized without authority, then he will be treated as infringer. But if he fulfills this condition as a licensee or a authorized person, then he is allowed to sell it as a parallel import, because his right is exhausted at the country B itself, and the country person in the B is free to sell it in the other country, even if the patent is there. And certain acts will not be considered as infringement, apart from 48, 47, which talks about research work or what is happening in COVID, that kind of the supply in the dispensary. This is possible. But these are the acts which are not infringement, particularly where you are importing a product for the use of development or submission of information under the law. Time codes in India, that is for authorities, you are submitting for approval of the product. But you have to get that whatever information is there, importation, whatever you want to do, should be duly authorized under the law, or sell and distribute the product. These two things are very, very important. So law should authorize you. So you are free to make this product for the purpose of only to get some approval from the authorities, just like drug controllers. You can do it for that purpose. You can import or even sell the product for the purpose of getting in those countries also. So, but this is a very tricky situation. In Novartis, in one of the cases where this has been also seen, where one of the company was wanted to sell this product. I'm not into that, and they were not allowed to do it because they were not selling it for the purpose of getting approvals, but they're selling it for the purpose of putting in the market. But the amount was more than the amount quote thing. So some cases are there which I allow you to read it. I'm not giving you right now, because this I give you as a reference to you, that some cases are there, and some drug manufacturers are also there who are willing to get this 107A approvals, but they have to fulfill these conditions on that. Let it be an example to you, and those who are looking for it, they can do it. Okay. And Bolar is the provision. Why I'm saying that Bolar is the provision where infringement of FDA is involved. This provision which I'm talking about, the BOLA provision. And here again, the FDA approvals, for the purpose of FDA approvals, the court has said, yes, you can do it. And this case went up to the WTO level also, and it was able to, Canada was able to prove that, yes, for the purpose of FDA approvals, yes, it is allowed, but for the stockpiling and for selling in the market, it was found as a violative, and this Canadian provision was used in section 107A, and it is now valid in India also. And I'm just skipping from this slide because there may be some cases which it is applicable where some of the WTO applications are still not having patents on it. And for those persons, the patent holder they have to pay only the reasonable royalty, because if they are manufacturing these products, no infringement will be there. Only they will be allowed to take the royalties only. And the other exceptions are there. The patent, when patent cease to exist, I already told you in the beginning, if the patent cease to exist, till the restoration is there, the rights are not there. And even the persons who are using in foreign vessels and aircraft, these rights are accidental in coming into territorial of water of India. They are also exempted from the enforcement part. Somewhere, foreign vessels or aircraft which is coming into India, they are always exempted. Okay. These are the international law exemptions which are already available to all the patents. And what are the defense available to the person? Defendant, what he can do? He can plead invalidity. So you can say that the patent is invalid. If he can prove that there are grounds, the novelty is there, or inventive step is not there. Section 64, so many grounds are there on which he can prove that the patent is invalid, and he can plead it as a defense. And he also can say that he is an innocent infringer. And while in the trial where he can prove that, yes, I am infringing, but the product which I am infringing is not novel because it was already known in the prior art. This is a chiller defense, and it's very, very important defense. And some cases are Gupta versus Acme Glass and NRDC versus DCM Chemicals. And let us move further. NRDC particularly, they failed they failed to check the validity of its patent, and therefore failed to obtain because once your validity of the patent is in doubt, court will never give you an injunction. If the defendant can prove that validity of the claim is in doubt by proving some evidence, giving some cases, citations, so if there are novelties hit or inventive step issues are involved, the court will not allow to give you injunction. And if defendant relied on the Gillette defense, in this case DCM, and they are using the prior of the Henry D. Beer. And if the plaintiff covered, they say that if the plaintiff covered that subject matter of the D. Beer, then patent was invalid because it is already in the prior art. And if did not cover, they are not infringing. It's a very tricky defense, very, very useful nowadays to prove that to show that I am infringing, but what I am infringing is already in the prior art. You can prove it. Gillette defense is very good defense for the purpose. Piracy of design, fine is 25,000. Recovery of damages or injunction, same way, and the total is does not exceed 50,000. So normally people say that if we get injunction in Designs Act, it is sufficient because we can stop him from using the invention rather than fines and all those things. That is also there. But best way is to stop him from doing it. TMO trademarks, we have civil remedies for grant of just like patents, interlocutory injunctions are there, Anton Pillar orders there, at damage and account of profit. Both are available in trademarks. In patents, it is damages or account of profits. And the criminal remedy is primitive, whatever punitive actions are available in the criminal courts. But here you can institute both the proceedings, as the civil as well as criminal, because you can push it for the obtaining the injunction and also push him to seek award of punishment to the infringer under the Trademarks Act. And patents are always subjected to import or export. Somebody is trying to make it and sell it outside, or somebody is making outside and want to put it in India. So custom cross-border remedies are always available for trademarks, for patents, trademarks, and and whatever IPRs are there, it is available for all of them. And the custom authorities are the gatekeepers in this sense. So they will not allow any infringing good to or patent, whether it is patents or trademarks or copyright related, they will not allow. So they have the authority to confiscate the infringing good, and they can put restrictions on parallel importation of good by customs. They can also put restrictions if it is not covered by Section 107. I have two cases, particularly Ram Kumar case, where dual SIM case was there. This is a patent number, and he stopped all the big dual SIM manufacturers like Samsung, Spice, Microsoft, at the customs authority itself, because he sent a notice to the custom authorities that these people are infringing their right, and I have this patent with me. And custom authorities, they took it as a notice, and they just passed and they stopped all the goods of the Samsung, Spice, and Microsoft. But this case went on further, and there were a lot of issues relating to customs. And after that, this act also, the rules have been framed. And when this case come to IPAB for adjudication about the validity, because they have filed all these people have filed invalidity proceedings also against. So this case was found to be invalid. So the invalidity proceedings saved these people from the difficulty of have what they faced at the custom authorities. Similarly, in the Bharat Bagilal case also, two patents were there. Again, this case also have the same issues. LG's electronics were stopped from at the custom itself. But this is for laser marking and engraving machines. And laser beams are for metals and non-metals. They used to write their names and all those things. For this purpose, these machines are used. And both these cases also came for adjudication in the IPAB. And these patents were also revoked based on the citations presented by the other parties. But they could not stop the custom authority from stopping their products. So it is very important now that before you do it, anything, you must check it whether there is a patent, existing patent is there. Either you should get the patent revoked, or you must present your case in proper way so that the customs authority doesn't stop your materials from entering the market. There is another order, we call it as new twist in enforcements. Here, the custom authorities, because they normally say that these records which we are having with us, we will not show it to anyone. I cannot disclose it to defendant. So they says it is not done. So in that case, they said in that particular case, the tobacco, Hollywood cigarettes were involved. So the court directed this is called Norwich Pharmacal Order, where the court said that they have to disclose the defendant export records. Because what is going outside, the court has to show that somebody is making infringements here and selling the product outside. The court has to. So they have asked them to show the record to them so that they can be stopped from infringement. Another is in trademarks, there is another case, cross-border remedies, another one. Because I told you the cross-border issues were very, very prevalent after Ram Kumar and other cases. So everyone who has some issues, they will simply go to customs office and stop this thing. And in this case, the patentee said all the custom authority should be notified that they should bar the import of these defending goods. So they were asking them to bar all these goods here. In another case again, the court also, they were seeking direction of the court to permit import of any goods infringing they should not permit import of any good infringing the LP. And court directed to the commissioner to look into the case and according to the law decided. And these are the case laws which gives a new twist to the custom authorities actions which were taken at earlier by letter itself, they will say that no, you can just stop the product or from going or coming. The court has to be, the customer has to be very careful now. Parting remarks are there because now you can see court can do in enforcement cases. Some twists are always there. You can see what this, I'm showing you a spittoon. Normally in films you see it used by the big rajas to spit somewhere. And this is because the Jarza case is involved. So, and the person was infringing. So he was asked by the court to install 150 spittoons in Osmania Cancer Hospital. So instead of giving them any other punishment, the injunction was given, and they were, instead of giving damages, they asked them to install 150 spittoons for the purpose of public good. Similarly, in another case, community service was ordered where they asked the infringer to devote 50 hours in orphanage in Mumbai because they were doing some polo and raffle cases where they were infringing some of the trademark issues. And there also they said, okay, you have to devote some 50 hours. So courts are very innovative nowadays whenever it comes to granting the damages or some infringement issues apart from injunction. And the highest damages I could see is the Microsoft case where they were even 20 lakhs. And another one is again in Kerala flood relief, 1.5 crores are given to the Galba laboratories. They have to pay this amount to Landmark. But Landmark said, no, please don't do that. You just deposit it. We agree to deposit this money in Kerala Relief Fund. The court agreed, and on the consent basis, this order was passed. So now you can see the IPRs has been taken a prime role in the enforcement. And enforcement, a lot of cases you are going to deal with. And I'm sure when there are 40 to 50,000 applications of patents coming and more than lakh of trademarks and copyrights are there, you have a lot of work to do as so far as infringement is concerned. And with this wish, I wish you all the success in your career. And you please go ahead and see that patent rights are defended and patent rights are enforced properly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you very much. Dr. Yadav, now you may invite questions. Dear participants, you can write question in the chat box. One question I am reading up from Ms. Kokila. Can the diagnosis of a disease be considered as a creation of mind, or it can be patented? Dr. Kokila Saxena is asking this question.
She is presenting question to me or to?
Either of you who is comfortable can take this question.
Well, she took the part of patentability. I pass on to her if she can answer.
Yeah.
Sir, can you just repeat the question, sir?
Dr. Kokila Saxena is asking, can the diagnosis of a disease be considered as a creation of mind, or can it be patented?
No, I mean, method of treatment or method of diagnosing is not patentable in India. Though we can do that in US, India, I don't think we have any methods of treatment are patentable.
Okay, thank you very much.
I can just add something to it. Diagnosis, normally it happens in two ways. Either you do it on the person, or you take out a material from the person's body, and then find it outside. So that the crux lies in that trick. Whether the diagnosis is you are treating the person inside their body, or if you are taking some material outside the body and then finding out. So based on that, if information, it can be patented or not patented.
Okay.
Yes.
By the time we have some other question, I want to ask one question from Mr. Parmar, that globally Indian IPR regime is not respected much, but still we are doing so well in pharmacy and many other sectors. So please try to, I wanted your view on this.
I have no idea, because from where you got this idea that globally we are not respected.
Like US is always saying that India IPR regime is not
Yeah, that is
very,
the basic problem is with 3D, sir.
But
Most of
yeah,
the developed countries have problem with 3D.
yeah.
I tell you, I give you an example. If the person who may be telling you, you ask him if he is the person of multinational or somebody company, ask him how many patents he has got in that particular area. Then you will understand the question. Because
Okay.
sometimes people used to tell me that we have granted compulsory license in India and we are not good at it. And now everybody in other countries are going for that compulsory license. We granted only one compulsory license in India. It was granted only one.
Okay.
So it is not that one refusal of Novartis or one grant of compulsory we are bad. We are granting a lot of patents. Only those which are having no patentability value. We treat patentability value in a different way. Okay, for that purpose we are not granting patent. Every country has that authority, that kind of you can say the sovereignty to see what kind of things should be granted in India and what should not be. And we are fully TRIPS compliant.
Okay.
That nobody has challenged us in WTO so far.
Okay.
Have
That's
anybody
good.
challenged us so far in WTO? Nobody has done it. So 3D still is good one, because it allows you for patenting rather than disallow you.
Okay. I have one more question from Bongani. Is it fair for the infringer of trademark to be punished twice under civil law as well as criminal law?
See, both the provisions are there in the Act. It's not a question of my being fair or not being fair. If the court gives a fine to a person who is charging somebody and also putting him in jail, both are illegal. Fine is possible.
And
And
there are many, yes. There are many other provisions which provide for civil as well as criminal action,
there are
like
some, that's what I'm telling.
defamation
We
is
are
also
just looking from the Act. We are not,
true.
court also look from the Act. In Patent Act, we don't have that kind of provision. So we cannot ask for the criminal proceedings. And
True.
even we cannot ask both damages as well as accounts of profit. We have to decide which one we want. So that is
Then there
important
is,
here.
thank you very much. There is another question from Abhyuday Dashamana. He is asking, why do we need to file separate patent application in each country of our interest?
Yeah, because of sovereignty. Every country has their own sovereign laws. You have to follow their laws only. So there
Like
is no
patent rights are,
one
yeah,
sovereign right, because they are sovereign rights. Yeah, sovereign
yeah.
rights.
Patent rights are territorial, we said, right?
Yeah.
So now
So,
we have something else called PCT. I mean, we didn't want to go into so many details. So we have one international application where we can file initially and then enter into the different countries after 31 months. So that, I mean, it's a little more technically we didn't cover that part. Maybe we
okay,
can do a little more advanced.
okay. So I think with this, I will close the question and answer session. It was a wonderful to have this webinar on IPR issues and challenges, in which Dr. Ramani and Mr. DPS Parmar, they, in a very easy to understand way, they told many issues and legal law provisions regarding IPR. And Constitution of India also provides for economic liberty. And right to property was a fundamental right, but
Yes.
it is no more a fundamental right now. By 44th Amendment in 1978, right to property Article 91F was omitted. So now it is a constitutional right under Article 301A. So right to IPR flows from constitutions also. And then we have Article 253, which obligates state to respect international laws and treaties and conventions. So IPR regime in India is very healthy and things are looking up. And I am sure in times to come, this after COVID, we will have more patent registrations and all. In our university also, many professors, many researchers are working day and night on many patentable new inventions. Recently, our students made a robot to help this COVID-19 patients in hospitals. They can carry medicines and food supplies, and many administrations in UP and neighboring states have bought those robots. So the future is very promising. I'm sure we will do better. And with a lot of webinars, we are getting a lot of knowledge. It's a good platform to share and exchange knowledge. So once again, on behalf of the faculty, student management, and non-teaching staff, I thank Mr. Parmar and Dr. Ramani for sparing their valuable time. And in future also, I'm sure we will continue this endeavor to exchange and share the knowledge. Once again, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. In case any students want any more questions, they can always approach us anytime.
Yeah, we will mail you if we have some questions.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We
Thank
also
you, Ramani
thank
ma'am.
you for
Thank you
inviting
very
us
much.
on this seminar. We also thank you for inviting us for this interaction. And it is
Thank you.
good to see that so many people have joined us. And
Yes.
we could pass some information which we have with us. And one thing I just want to say, a parting remark, the Patent Act and all this have improved the situation of filing of patents in India. When I joined patent office, it was 400 applications. Now it is 40 lakhs, 40,000 applications or more. You can see the growth, the phenomenal growth that is going to grow. And you have a bright future. All the students who are working with you, they have a bright future if they want to work in IPR fields. Good luck to
Thank
all
you
of
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you
you,
for sparing your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Parmar.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav.